You know how people say it can't get any better than this, and then that's not true? It's true tonight. We've got 11-1 Detroit hosting 9-3 Green Bay. That is the best combined winning percentage in the history of the NFL for any Thursday night game in December or later. Oh, by the way, Detroit hasn't lost since the start of October, and the Packers' only loss since the start of October is to Detroit. It is a massive NFC North showdown with all kinds of ramifications, and we'll break it down now on the Pregame PowerUp. Let's go! And with that, we welcome you into Week 14 of the NFL season on the Pregame PowerUp here on DraftKings Network. Trey, Wingo here with Claudia, Bellafotto. Marshall Newhouse will join us in a little bit, as will Emerson Latzia. We are all over this game with massive playoff implications here. Keep in mind that the Detroit Lions can clinch a playoff berth tonight with a win, but if Green Bay wins, then they still are in line to potentially get the #1 seed in the NFC. Plus, we'll break down the 3-game suspension of Aziz Al-Shaair being upheld, and we'll talk about everything related to this game. And the numbers for this game are a little crazy right now.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it too, motivation off the top. When we get into these playoff implication games, that usually matters, and bettors are going to bet accordingly. This line 6 days ago was the Lions as a 5.5-point favorite. It's all the way down to 3 now. Now, that's important because we're looking at a Lions squad that is a home favorite, but only as a 3-point favorite. That's the books basically saying, hey, on a neutral field, these two teams are the same.
Correct.
And that says a lot about how bettors have come in and bet this game.
Well, it's interesting, too, because, yes, the Lions already have beaten the Packers in Green Bay. But if you go back and look at that game, there's a couple of turnovers. Green Bay actually outgained them in that game statistically. So, I mean, Lions did what they had to do, but Green Bay gave them a lot better game than the numbers would indicate. There.
And Jordan Love has been cleaning it up, right?
Yep.
2 back-to-back games without an interception. Detroit dealing with a ton of defensive injuries, which we'll get to. So I guess the movement makes sense, but it's pretty drastic.
Yeah, look, this is going to be great no matter what. And what the Lions are doing is historic for this franchise. They come into this game on a 10-game winning streak. The first time they did that since 1934. They have never won 11 straight in their 95-year history, but this may be the best team they've had in those nearly a century of years. They are top 5 in almost every statistical category you can think of. They have the best scoring offense. They have the second best scoring defense. As of right now, they're just the 6th team in the Super Bowl era that can claim both of those things. 4 of the previous 5 reached the Super Bowl, and 3 of them won it all. So that's what we're looking for here when you look at this Detroit team. And they're not just winning, they are killing teams. Their plus 180-point differential this season leads the NFL. Put another way, they're the anti-Kansas City Chiefs. Their opponents tonight, though, also top 5 in that point differential category. It's currently their best point differential in franchise history, the 5th highest through 12 games since 2000. But it hasn't been a cakewalk for this team either. They've had a tough schedule, they've had a ton of injuries, but Lions head coach Dan Campbell says that resiliency is the identity of this team.
We've been this way for a long time, in my opinion. I mean, it's what our guys are made of, and you know, and they understand that. And look, the best part of all of this, like, we're in playoff football right now. Like, that's where we're at. We're in December, and our schedule says that. Man, we play tough opponent after tough opponent after tough. We got another one. I mean, we got plenty coming up. So, and this is the type of stuff that you live for, and it's also the type of stuff that gets you ready for the tournament. You know, so yeah, we're a resilient bunch, and nothing's going to change that. We got to worry about the one in front of us.
And that's what they've been doing. The Lions picked up that 10th straight win over the Bears on Thanksgiving, but they did have one streak snapped in that game. Detroit had gone 25 straight with at least 1 rushing touchdown, the longest streak in NFL history. And it's been the dynamic duo of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery getting it done, but neither could find the end zone in Week 13, which ended the streak. Montgomery and Gibbs are both averaging over 80 scrimmage yards per game for the 2nd straight season. They've touched the ball at almost identical levels since becoming teammates in 2023. Montgomery with 428 touches, while Gibbs has 425. Of course, that means their prop totals tonight are also almost identical. One thing to consider while betting these guys tonight, Montgomery has gone over 61 rushing yards in 7 of his last 8 games against the Packers, including 5 in a row. Jahmyr Gibbs has recorded 63 plus rushing yards in each of the Lions' last 11 games, but he might be in the doghouse a little bit tonight. We'll explain that in a little bit, Claudia.
Yeah, Trey, and the Packers are also coming off a Thanksgiving victory, so let's give some flowers to them, stomping the Dolphins 30-17 at a frigid Lambeau in Week 13. Nobody saw that coming. Jordan Love had another solid effort, throwing for 274 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's now gone, like I said earlier, 2 straight games without an interception for the first time this season. The Packers' .750 win percentage would be the best in NFL history by a team to finish 3rd place in their division. Now let's dig into their head coach a little bit, because as far as tonight's game goes, Green Bay has their work cut out for them against Dan Campbell. But Matt LaFleur is a good underdog. He's 24-12 ATS as a dog, 20-16 straight up. And look at this number. He is covering 62% of the time against teams above 500, which of course this Lions squad is. And another great stat for him is all of these ones in December. He has had December dominance, 18-2 straight up, 11-9 against the spread, and 4-0 straight up and against the spread as a dog. But as we all know, it doesn't just matter what the coach is doing. A lot of it goes on the quarterback's shoulders. And tonight, his quarterback has to limit the mistakes. In their Week 9 matchup, Love threw a back-breaking pick 6 to Kirby Joseph in the second quarter. Green Bay, like Trey said, outgained Detroit in first downs, yards, and yards per play in that game. But the mistakes were just too much to overcome. In his career as a starter, Love is 11-2 when throwing no interceptions and 6-11 when throwing 1 or more. And he, better than anybody, knows that can't happen tonight.
Yeah, I remember, Detroit's a good team. They're a good defense. They do a lot of good things. And I think, looking back at the film, a lot of stuff that we left out there, a lot of misplays, a lot of mistakes, and obviously not our best game. So a lot of stuff that we'll be looking to clean up going in this week.
Here's a look at the playoff picture in the NFC. 3 teams from the North are solidly in the postseason right now: Lions, Packers, and Vikings. It's just the second division in the Super Bowl era to have 3 teams with 9 or more wins entering December. The 1984 AFC West was the other. The Lions are a perfect 3-0 in the division this year, and they haven't won their first 4 division matchups in a decade, Trey.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting here, because this is why everything is still in play. You said they're 3-0 in their division. Well, what does that tell you? They still have 3 division games to play starting tonight. So if somehow Green Bay gets this one, Detroit comes down one, suddenly everybody's back in the mix, and then the Lions are tied with the Vikings for 2 losses, and Green Bay's just 1 behind. So there are so many moving parts that can still change in the NFC North, which is weird when you consider how dominant Detroit has been.
I know.
Injuries. We're going to see a lot of those tonight, and a lot of players are not going to be on the field tonight. Take a look at some of the bigger names that won't be on the field. We're talking about some really critical players here. We're looking at Romeo Doubs out tonight. Jair Alexander also has yet to clear concussion protocol, so he'll miss his 2nd straight game for Green Bay. Alexander's going to miss his 3rd straight with a knee. The Lions have been beat up all year. They'll be without several players on the defensive line, as well as offensive tackle Taylor Deckard. So they are battling a lot of things, and really, more than anywhere else, the Lions have been just really mauled by injuries on the defensive side of this. So for more on the X's and O's of tonight's game, it's going to be a big one. Let's bring in a man who knows about playing in the NFC North, played 11 seasons in the NFL, according to a couple with the Green Bay Packers. That is Marshall Newhouse. Marshall, you look at the Lions' injuries, and it started with Aiden Hutchinson in the Cowboys game, and they've just sort of piled up since then. In your mind, is that the biggest concern for them going forward? I think they have, 13 players, defensive side of the ball, under injured reserve right now.
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest thing. It's not everything, but it is the biggest thing. It has impacted the way that, at least on defense, Aaron Glenn is calling the game. Coordinator Aaron Glenn is having to pressure a lot. They're almost up to 40% pressure rate, which is top, if not one, number 2 in the league, trying to manufacture pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And that's entirely due to injuries and the lack of a guy like Aiden Hutchinson's pass rush. And so, yeah, they're a team that has some holes there, but they've been filling in as good teams do. I think Dan Campbell he preaches the next man up, which, it's nothing new, but it's another thing to embody. It's another thing to have guys who they've signed a few, even last week, who you can plug and play in there and hope for the best, and they'll do what they need to do. But there are still some weaknesses and some things that can be exploited, and I expect Green Bay to go after them.
You're so right about the next man up mentality. Every coach says it, but it just feels different when Dan Campbell says it. You really believe it. And this is going to be key for the Packers, though. I'm sure they're looking at all these injuries and saying, hey, this is our time to keep this winning streak going. I talked about Jordan Love cleaning up his game. They're averaging 30 points since that loss to the Lions a few weeks ago. What have you seen outside of Jordan Love cleaning the game up that has really changed in this Packers offense?
Yeah, they've really just got a lot of continuity in their run game. I think Coach Matt LaFleur is creeping into Coach of the Year contention. The way he's calling things on offense has just been a sight to behold. A lot of window dressing, a lot of creativity on offense, which is still getting them to what we call split zone looks and really basic run concepts, but it's allowing the offensive line to really fire off the ball. It's allowing Josh Jacobs, who's a physical back who, we're talking about the whole running back market being the pendulum swinging too far and undervaluing them. He's an incredible pickup for them. He's getting to the second level and breaking the most tackles in the league. And so this offense is really potent, and they're leaning on the run game, which is something that really translates to late in the season, cold games at Lambeau, and the potential of the playoffs.
Yeah, this one won't be a chilly factor, obviously, because it's in Detroit, but you're right. Josh Jacobs could be a factor down the stretch in these late season games. Let's talk a little bit about one of the players that the Lions did pick up on defense. They made the trade deadline deal to get Zadarius Smith, the edge rusher, after the Aiden Hutchinson injury. In 3 games so far with the Lions, he has 2 sacks. What have you seen so far from him and the impact he's had on this defense?
Well, I think there was a stat that when Aiden Hutchinson went down from then until last week, he was still the leading guy in pressures on the Detroit defense, which is telling you a lot of what they were missing. But since week 11, Zadarius Smith is first in the league in pressures. So he's getting home. He's a very versatile rusher. He likes to stand up mostly. They can move him around and find weaknesses on the offensive line. And he's a veteran. He's a veteran presence who's played in this division, which is very important going against Green Bay. And he knows how to win. And he's a guy, he's not a guy, I don't think, on the level of Aiden Hutchinson, but he's providing them a lot of continuity on the defensive front. And that allows then Aaron Glenn to not have to pressure outright as much, which means you can do more simulated pressure, which means you're only still rushing 4, maybe 5 guys, but you're dropping more into coverage. It makes this defense that is about 7th in the league in defensive rating a little bit more potent. That gets guys in better position. They don't have to take as much risk.
And we're going to take a next-gen look at Jordan Love's numbers and how they drop when he's facing that pressure. You put Smith in the equation, makes it a bit tougher. I want to go back to the run game, which you had just mentioned. These 2 squads, 4th and 5th in rush yards per game. Everybody in that top 5 in the NFL has at least 8 wins. Are we seeing sort of a running game renaissance right now? And what does this do for offensive linemen?
I don't know if you call it a renaissance. It's just an adaptation, and it might be a small, minor one. But you saw as the league went to so much passing and things being spread out, what happened? Teams started drafting and developing linebackers who were better at running. Could they cover a tight end down the seam? They're a little bit lighter. And now you've seen teams kind of go the other way, an adaptation where they're running at these linebackers. They're running at these pass rushing 3 techniques, pass rushing defensive ends, and you're seeing more teams dedicate themselves to the run, which then allows, I think, a lot of these quarterbacks like Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts and the like, even Jared Goff, to run play action, takes more pressure off them. So they're not throwing 35, 40 times a game. It's funny. I was in New Orleans briefly with Drew Brees in 2019, and as much as we laud him, most people can't live like that. The way he threw the ball, that's not a way that most people can live and succeed. And so the teams have adapted the other way. As an offensive lineman, you love setting your pads, getting on the combo blocks, and you realize it's going to take to the 4th quarter, but those body blows wear down a defense. They give you an opportunity to have to just drop back less and impose your will a little bit more.
Yeah, offensive linemen love the game where Goff, I think, was 6 of 8 in that game. And they just pounded the rock. That's what you love. Yeah. All right, who do you love?
I love the end-around passes to Penei Sewell, so we can do those 2.
Yes, by the way, Penei Sewell has been sacked more than sacks he's given up this season on that one.
All right, real quickly, he's got to throw the ball away.
Well, he'll learn. Who do you like tonight? Who do you like in this matchup?
I like Green Bay. I think they're playing really, really well. I think the injuries are mounting for Detroit. They're still a very evenly matched team. But the last game, Green Bay made a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes, and the score was still 24-14. So give me Green Bay tonight.
All right, Philadelphia likes that answer too. Marshall, thanks. We'll check back with you a little bit later on in the show. In true Sonic and Knuckles fashion, the only thing Detroit's two running backs want to collect is a ring, but they've been racking up some pretty impressive records along the way. We'll take a look at that when we continue. We continue on the pregame power-up, and look, any way you slice it, it's been a great season for Jahmyr Gibbs. Even splitting time with David Montgomery, he's fifth in the NFL with 1,255 scrimmage yards this season. He's on pace to join Marshall Faulk as the only two players in the last 30 seasons to lead the NFL in yards per touch for the NFL's top scoring offense. That, of course, when Marshall was the main cog in the greatest show on turf for the then St. Louis Rams. But are there mitigating circumstances that might limit some of Gibbs' playing time this week? This might be the reason. In a post on his Instagram account, this is what Jahmyr Gibbs put up. It's a picture of also another running back, Jamar Jefferson, in front of all the protection calls on this whiteboard here. Everything that the Lions are trying to do, drop back protection, what we're doing here, this is everything right here. Put it up on his social media account. Why? I have no idea. Now, Dan Campbell, the head coach, didn't even find out about it until he was asked about it in his press conference this week. And then he said, yeah, I wish our stuff wasn't out there. So obviously it's been a hot topic back and forth all week long. And Dan has tried to diffuse the situation, especially when he did this on a local radio show.
I know what it is, but I'm like, you know what? We might as well just put everything out there. I don't really give a crap. I mean, if we're going to lose because of code words, then we're not good enough anyway. So I think we'll just post the whole freaking playbook out there and every code word we've got. And it doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt us. It won't affect us. And it's all good.
Not his initial reaction again. Want to repeat that. I understand what he's doing there, but that's not what he said originally. Here's what it looks like for Gibbs and Montgomery since becoming teammates last season. Almost identical output, with Montgomery edging Gibbs in touchdowns and Gibbs edging Montgomery in yards. Their combination of power and speed has been giving NFL teams nightmares for 2 seasons now and earned them the nickname Sonic and Knuckles. And of course, Emerson Latzia said, Sonic and Knuckles, I can do something with that.
Sonny and Cher, Batman and Robin, Bert and Ernie. These perfect pairs are proof that 2 is always better than 1. And right now in Detroit, we're witnessing the birth of yet another dynamic duo. A tenacious 2-headed tandem sharing the spoils. David Montgomery hammering holes with his proficient power, while the jazzy Jahmyr Gibbs slices and dices through defenses with his speed. And their undeniable capabilities and chemistry have drawn a very apt comparison.
I think we got a new name going around. I think it's Sonic and Knuckles, and I happen to be Knuckles, so which is cool. I like that one.
You really hear that? I've never heard that for a group, so or 2 people. So I mean, we really stuck with that, and right now it's rolling right now.
The nickname is catching on in more ways than one. It's verbal wildfire, and even landed them a commercial with their video game namesakes.
If y'all keep talking about Dr. Robotnik in film room, I'm gonna lose it. Guys.
Another Sonic and Knuckles dream? Hell yeah.
These 2 aren't just band in name either. In other words, they don't have friends. They got family.
It's super cool. I've never experienced anything like it. Jahmyr is my little brother, and I'm super blessed to have him in my life. As a football player, but like as a human for me too.
And even though Montgomery, AKA Knuckles, is the elusive sidekick of the bunch, he's been a mentor to the sensational sophomore.
Ever since I've been there, he's showed nothing but love, very selfless. Whenever he does good, I do good, and we're both happy for each other.
And neither one is hedgehogging the spotlight. These proud backfield brothers even made their Thanksgiving Day entrance as a happy couple.
It's the fact that they, want people to know that they're together 100%. That makes me feel, it makes you feel really, really good as a coach and as teammates. That you know that it's not about this guy getting carries or that guy getting carries. The biggest detail of all this is they want to be remembered for what they did on the field.
This history-making twosome is tops in the league this year. However, their goal of becoming the best of all time is a lofty one, considering the competition. Don't sleep on double trouble in Duval. Fred Taylor and MJD. The undefeated Miami Dolphins boasted a beefy backfield of Larry Zonka and Mercury Morris. Ingram and Kamara boom and zoom in the Big Easy with 1,500 scrimmage yards apiece. Imagine how lucky the Raiders were to have Bo Jackson and Marcus Allen together on the field. And in Tampa, you had the original Thunder and Lightning of Dunn and Allstott. Gibbs and Montgomery have each scored a touchdown in the same game 9 times. 9 times? 9 times. If they do it again, they'll own the all-time record.
We got a good thing going here with me and Ja, going back and forth, saving each other's energy because we're going to need both of us throughout the whole entire year in order for us to go on a run.
So who could possibly stop that run? Look no further than the mustachioed man who bears the uncanny resemblance of the iron-fisted enemy of Sonic and Knuckles.
That was well done to get Andy Reid in there.
Yeah, that was good. Good job, Emerson.
That was well done. Well done, Emerson. Yeah, all those parries. I think, and this is not going to be upsetting to Emerson at all, Fred Taylor and MJD were really, really good.
I was going to say, it's a really hard, it's a great class to be in, but it's going to be tough. But you look at what they do when we talk about how solid and balanced this Lions offense is, I think it starts with them because they're such a big part of the passing game. So when Laporta was out and hurt, they're viable options there. And again, like you said, they don't care whose game it is.
That's
they
the
just
best
want
part.
They want both each other to succeed.
They're cool with this. And that's the reason why it works. So there's a double-headed monster for Detroit, but there's one guy for the Packers on my fantasy team that's also doing very well. You're right, no one cares.
No, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Josh Jacobs, he's not a slouch. He leads the Packers with 987 rush yards, 8 touchdowns. He has at least 90 scrimmage yards in each of his last 8 games. One of the 3 backs with a streak that long over the last 4 seasons. Christian McCaffrey had a 10-game streak last season. Jacobs also loves playing on Thursday Night Football. He scored a touchdown in each of his previous 5 games. Here's a look at how people are betting tonight. Bettors love Jacobs to go over his rushing yards total. Over 80% of the bets, 90% of the handle on him to do so. As for the spread and money line, most action on the Lions, despite this line moving in the Packers' favor, and about 2/3 of the bets and handle on the over. For more on the liability at the DK Sportsbook, here's our anonymous sportsbook informant, Captain Book.
It's 12-5, and believe it or not, the NFC North is still alive. Sharp bettors declared their intentions on Black Friday, betting a Green Bay group led by Ryan Reynolds' doppelganger. Public support for Detroit's been strong all season long, and that continues tonight, as nearly every parlay through Sunday is tied to the team coached by Dennis Leary's creatine-laced lookalike. So whether you're watching the Ref or just friends this holiday season, remember, there's no such thing as a loss if you learn a valuable lesson. Big Daddy Dan Campbell's billed to cover just 11 times as a favorite, cashing 20 tickets at 64% as chalk, while Muddy Mouse Matt LaFleur has only failed to cover 11 spreads as a dog, 66% over 33 games. So the moral of this story? Hey, why choose a side when you can just bet the over? 20 days to Santa. Who's been naughty and who's been nice? Let's find out tonight. Ho, 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 ho!
No accent this time.
That was a win. I think we're going to hear that naughty and nice thing a few more times.
Maybe. Yeah, it's a little early. Well, I guess we're in December now.
It is. Yeah, it snowed here.
That's scary.
I was not happy about that, but that's a separate issue. All right. For more things more related to football and not the weather, let's go to the DraftKings trading floor and check in with Mike Pritchard, former NFL wide receiver, and does great stuff for VSiN as well. All right, look, you played, so you know it's a cardinal sin to show anybody anything. And Dan Campbell tried to play it down, but he was ticked when he first heard about it. Seriously, how bad was that post went up?
I mean, not as bad as the fumble as he's about to score, but it was bad. It's severe, right? I mean,
thank you.
These coaches, they live with paranoia anyway. I mean, they cover up their mouths with everything they're trying to say because of lip reading, right? So I think it was addressed, but it's not going to carry over. It's not going to have a carryover effect. They want Gibbs to forget about it. Just no cameras, no phones in the meeting room, right? It's just like kids in a classroom. Leave your phones outside the classroom, and things like this won't happen.
I mean, or Pritch, they did it on purpose, but nobody thinks that.
Oh, you're going the conspiracy theorist.
I don't know.
Okay.
I want to go back to this run game, and we talked about this with Marshall as well, how it helps offensive linemen when the run game is going so smoothly. But of course, it opens up that passing game. Of course, you played in the league at wide out. So what does that really do for a receiver when you know what's coming out of the backfield on your offense?
Oh, Claudia, we love it because we have single high safety. I hate the two safety looks because sometimes those can lead to a headache or a concussion because they're lurking and they're waiting for the passing game. But if there's a single high safety, obviously they're dropping somebody else in the box to address the running game. And so if it's zone, I got one guy to beat primarily in my zone. If it's not zone, if it's man-to-man, then okay, if I beat my man, then all of a sudden it's a big play. So we love the fact that we can get the running game going. When I was in college, we ran the ball very, very well, and I averaged 26 yards per reception. And same thing in the pros. We could not run the ball in Atlanta and run and shoot, and therefore your average per reception would drop. But the running game is complementary to the passing game. It sets up play action and makes the game easier for the quarterback as well.
All right, Mike, let's talk a little bit about Jared Goff. Look, with the things that he's done and some of the unbelievable numbers he's put up, he's in the MVP conversation. But then a lot of people will say, well, hold on a minute now. Look at that two-headed running attack of Gibbs and Montgomery. That's really why he's playing so well. When you hear things like that, what comes to mind?
Well, I mean, it's certainly helping, but Jared Goff has elevated himself.
Absolutely.
I think he's playing with more confidence, right? He'll have that mom spaghetti moment against Houston and throw 5 interceptions. There's a lot of quarterbacks that'll do that. But for the most part, he's been that catalyst, that belief system, that beacon really for that football team to have confidence in their leader. And so therefore, in the locker room, it's important. The way he's playing on the field is important. The way he's got his offensive line and that cohesiveness is very important too. And then the playmaking ability. I mean, if they have to throw it, they can certainly rely on Jared Goff. He has so much confidence with the fact that they can run the football, and then the ease of play on offense is certainly, this system is helping out Jared Goff.
And again, going back to the unselfishness of this team, it's not just Sonic and Knuckles.
Right.
It starts at the quarterback position. All right, you know where I'm going to come from. We always talk about the dogs. I like to ask you if you're sticking to what you're used to. But, Mike, favorites have dominated Thursday Night Football. They're hitting straight up at 75%. Against the spread, only 38 and 33. But this number has come down all the way down to 3. So which way are you going?
Well, Claudia, you know, November was not kind to me. It was Pritch November. certainly want to fade Pritch in November because my plays were just all over the place. But I'm going to go back to the dogs. I got to. Because that's what's tried and true for me. That's worked for me. I think the number coming down is representative of certainly the respect for Green Bay. And the second time around, too. I mean, we're going to correct our mistakes in that first game. And then second time around, familiarity, maybe it evens things out. And I think that line represents that. So give me the Packers and the 3 points.
All right, so you're taking the dog. Now let's talk about the total. This is the second highest total for a Thursday night game, behind only that Ravens-Bengals game, which went way over, 35-34, an unbelievable shootout there. What do you think about this one tonight?
You know, Trey, burned my fingers on that too. I went under on that one. And here I am as a wide receiver, and I think every game is going to be a shootout, and it should be. Well, I'm going over. I got to go over. I mean, these two teams, I know familiarity. There's no short week. I mean, they've had regular preparation for this game. I think coach speak will tell you, okay, we got to run the football, possess it, and keep it away from the opposing team's offense. But I think when it comes down to game time, you're going to do what you're more comfortable with and what certainly is going to help you win a game, and that's throwing the football. So I see both of these two teams trying to throw the football against some injury situations for both teams as well.
Well, look, the Lions have 2 50-point games this season. The rest of the NFL has exactly 1. So they know how to put up some points. Pritch, we appreciate the information. Thanks very much. All right, so look at this as we head down the stretch here. We mentioned the game tonight featuring the two teams with the highest combined winning percentage in any Thursday night game in December or later in NFL history. It's also tied for the 4th highest entering any primetime game in December or later in NFL history. The home team won all 8 previous such matchups with a combined winning percentage of .833.
And what's interesting, too, we talk about this in betting, is high variance versus low variance. And when you see these high totals, a lot of the time you'd see a spread where it opened around 5.5, right? If somebody's going to win, if there's a lot of points scored, there's a good possibility it'll be by a lot. So that's what's also interesting, seeing this line come down to 3, but the total not budging much.
Keep this in mind, too. This is a primetime game, right? This stat may surprise a few people. The Lions are an NFL best 8-1 in primetime since the 2022 season. And that only primetime loss was the game against the Cowboys where Taylor Decker did not report when he actually did report. So if that had been called correctly, they would be unbeaten in primetime since 2022. They would be a perfect 9-0.
They're pretty good, though.
Not bad.
I think they're okay. I don't know if they care too much. Coming up next, we're taking a next-gen look at how Jordan Love will attempt to attack this Detroit defense, and the numbers suggest he may be in for a tough night.
since I've been a Packer, Detroit's been a thorn in my side personally. So I'd say every chance I get to play them and to beat them it's a chance I'm not going to take lightly. So I'm eager to play them every time.
And that's why it's a rivalry. Tucker Kraft is ready to face a division rival tonight. He's been a key part of the Packers offense this season, playing in over 85% of their offensive snaps. That is the second most among tight ends. He also leads the NFL in yards after the catch, averaging 10 yards per reception. Kraft has really been productive, though, in the red zone. He leads Green Bay in red zone targets and receiving touchdowns this season. His 6 touchdowns are third among all NFL tight ends. Kraft on the end zone tonight is plus 190 on the DK Sportsbook, Claudia.
Let's take a next-gen look at some of the troubles this Packers offense could face tonight against Detroit. And let's start with Jordan Love. We have that matchup back in Week 9 to look at. He struggled against the blitz, completing just 3 of 10 passes for 23 yards with an interception when blitzed, compared to averaging 8.6 yards per attempt when he wasn't blitzed. He's averaging 5.5 yards attempt against the blitz, which does rank 32nd in the NFL. And the Lions have blitzed at the second highest rate since losing Aiden Hutchinson in Week 6. And even more worrisome is the fact that they didn't have Zadarius Smith in that Week 9 matchup. And since joining the squad, he has generated 17 pressures on 84 rushes, resulting in an over 20% pressure rate. That would rank 3rd highest if he had enough pass rushes to qualify. So what does this mean? Jordan Love going to be facing that pressure, has to get rid of that ball quickly. More often than not, he looks to his guy, Jayden Reed. He leads the squad in targets, catches, and yards when the time to throw is 2.5 seconds or less. And something you may not know, this duo, quarterback-receiver, is the highest-rated quarterback-receiver duo in the NFL this season. So look to Jayden Reed tonight to be that safety blanket for Jordan Love.
You know, Claudia, we talked about how banged up the Lions defense has been this season. They made some depth move this week, signing veterans Jamal Adams and Quan Alexander to their practice squad. I think they've both been elevated to the active roster for tonight. So we're going to see their debuts. The Lions, it's crazy. They have 4 linebackers on injured reserve, 13 defensive players in total. No other NFL team has more than 7 defensive players on injured reserve. But despite all of that, this defense is still performing at a very high level. Detroit is allowing just under 17 points a game. That is second best in the NFL. It's the 4th fewest points per game allowed by a Lions team in the Super Bowl era and the fewest since 1976. The last time they had a top 2 scoring offense and defense was 1970 when they lost in the divisional round to the Dallas Cowboys.
It's been a while.
Yeah, a little bit.
Jared Goff has been front and center for that top scoring NFL offense. He has a 121.7 passer rating over his last 10 games played. That's the highest in his career over any single season 10-game span. He leads the league in passing yards per attempt, and he's second among qualified quarterbacks in completion percentage and passer rating, which leads us to the MVP conversation. He is firmly in that, although Josh Allen exists, and it's going to be tough to beat him. The Lions quarterback, though, has the 4th best odds at 12-1 behind Allen, Saquon Barkley, and Lamar Jackson. The 4 times a quarterback led the NFL in passing yards per attempt for the league's top scoring offense, he did win MVP. That was Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Peyton Manning. Trey.
Yeah, you got to put Saquon Barkley in there at some point. I know it's almost exclusively a quarterback award, which is ridiculous. Adrian Peterson was the last running back to win it for the Vikings when he came within 9 yards of breaking Eric Dickerson's record. Mm-hmm. Barkley right now is on pace to break that record. If he breaks the record, I think you have to seriously consider him.
Well, I mean, he's definitely in it, and he'll certainly see votes, but I think we're seeing Josh Allen juiced for a reason, and I said that at the beginning of the season. They're either going to have 4 wins or they're going to win the AFC East, and Josh Allen will win MVP, because the rest of the schedule, too, they have the Rams, the Lions, but then the Jets and the Pats twice.
Yeah.
Josh Allen's going to cruise.
These next 2 weeks will determine whether or not the Bills lose another game.
Yeah.
That's basically the way it's going to go. The Lions might be.
Outside of the Lions, the rest of those should be wins.
Yeah. I don't think Josh will have a problem going out to L.A. and taking the Rams.
No,
I don't think that's going to be too difficult. Somebody who is having a difficult time right now is a Texans linebacker. Aziz Al-Shaair was suspended 3 games for the hit on Trevor Lawrence in Week 13. That suspension was appealed. It's been upheld. A former player that heard that appeal, offensive lineman Ramon Foster. Lawrence is headed to IR, which effectively ends his season. Al-Shaair will be eligible to return for Houston's regular season finale against the Titans. Al-Shaair has a base salary of $1.5 million this season, meaning it's going to cost him about $285,000. Here was the statement from NFL VP of Policy and Rules, John Runyon, on the suspension. And John, by the way, was a player in his day who knew how to throw in an extra elbow every once in a while. Let's just be honest about that. Here's what John had to say. Your lack of sportsmanship and respect for the game of football and all those who play, coach, and enjoy watching it is troubling and does not reflect the core values of the NFL. Your continued disregard for NFL playing rules puts the health and safety of both you and your opponents in jeopardy and will not be tolerated. Strong words from Runyon, which Texans GM Nick Caserio took some exception to.
Look, it is what it is. I think the big thing from our standpoint, and all teams want this, is just some level of consistency. And we've talked to the league, quite frankly, but we don't have a good explanation. D'Amico talked to them yesterday. So, I mean, it is what it is. I'm sure Aziz will go through whatever process he's going to go through, and then we'll deal with it accordingly. But I think what we take umbrage is just the picture that's been painted about Aziz, his intentions, who he is as a person. I mean, quite frankly, it's bullshit. And it's unfair to the individual. It's unfair to the organization. I mean, we love everything about Aziz Al-Shaair, what he means to this team, what he brings to this team.
Let's just stay for the record. I respect Nick Caserio sticking up for his players.
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
All that being said, no one's painting a picture. We all saw it. It wasn't just the hit. It was then him trying to fight everybody on the field and then getting into altercations with the fan. Look, this is not there's the hit and that's it. No, there were several things where Aziz was so far over the line was a dot to him.
See, the way that I watched it was, obviously it was a bad hit, but also I think from and I've been listening to all the defensive players come to, his backing saying, we're all playing the same game. We're all trying to stop that extra yardage for the quarterback. The quarterback's going for the extra yardage. And the Jags players did go after him and they shoved him down. And of course, that's how fights start. I understand where they're coming from, though. We usually don't have these conversations after somebody, is banned for a game or two, because usually language like this, I feel we don't see often.
Yeah, look, the consistency thing from Nick is 100% right. But if we're going to be honest and talk about consistency, let's talk about Aziz Al-Shaair's reputation. Okay, Sunday night game this year against the Bears, he absolutely threw a sucker punch at a player, and all the refs weren't looking, didn't see it. Should have been ejected for that. Go back a couple of years ago, there's footage of him when he was playing for the 49ers. He choked Tom Brady. He literally took his hand and put it around Tom Brady's neck, and then you see a replay of Tom going, hey, you can't do that. So I get, Nick, you want consistency in the suspension for those kind of hits. I understand it. But then the penalty is going to come with the consistency that we see from you as a player over time. So if you want consistency, you can get it, but you can't get it on one side of the equation and not like it on the other side of the equation. Selective outrage doesn't work for me ever. Let's talk to someone who might be outraged about this, and let's go back to Marshall
I'm
Newhouse.
curious, yeah.
Marshall, were you surprised at all that the 3-game suspension was upheld? Because a lot of people thought they'll set it at 3, they'll bring it down to 2 upon appeal, but they basically said, no, you're missing 3 games.
Yeah, 3 feels tough, and I get that they're operating from a level of precedence with Aziz. But I agreed. I thought it'd be 3, and I thought they'd reduce it, because people see it as just games, but this is, depending on the contract, hundreds of thousands of dollars lost as well. And so, yes, he has some questionable plays in his past, but I spoke about this on our last show about the quarterbacks absolutely bear some responsibility in how they're litigating on the field, leveraging the slide, and how they're getting out of bounds and how they're protecting themselves. And so multiple things can be true. Aziz launched that in with his forearm. He's got other altercations. He acted like a maniac after they kind of bum rushed him. But also, quarterbacks have to protect themselves. And I don't understand the piousness from a John Runyon making it seem like, a defamation of a character type deal. I'm not with that at all, because we've seen guys who legitimately are not great people. And the inference there is that this is somehow tied to his character. And I just don't see that. So again, I thought the 3-game suspension was a barometer that they set. I thought they pulled back from it. I feel it's pretty steep, especially for a team that's fighting for their division this late in the season.
it's a very polarizing topic, and clearly the NFL is just trying to make a point. It probably could have been any player in this situation, and they just want to make a point. Okay, let's move away from that and talk about some futures when it comes to the Vikings and the Packers in the NFC North. Something interesting at the DK Sportsbook. The Vikings right now have shorter odds to win the North at 4-1. The Packers are at 1,400. However, when you look at the conference odds, the Packers actually have shorter odds. They're third at +650. The Vikings have longer odds, so the book's basically saying if the Packers get in, they think they have a better chance of, making a deeper run into the postseason and possibly winning the conference. How accurate do you think that is looking at these two teams?
I think when you compare them, I think those numbers are based on the variability of Sam Darnold. I think that's exactly what it comes down to. You can trust, and put quotes around trust, Jordan Love more. I think they're both very balanced teams, competitive. Obviously, their records are very, very close. But Sam Darnold's been playing excellent this year. But you got to see, if there's a team that brings pressure, gets in his lap, you understand that Sam Darnold can throw 3 picks like that. We've seen that. You don't change wholesale over one season, even if Kevin O'Connell's having coaching his life away right now. And so Sam Darnold has had 10 games this season of 100-plus QB rating. Who else has 10 games? It's him and it's Lamar Jackson. So he's playing excellent. The floor of this team, I think, is higher because they compliment him with the way the defense plays and the way Kevin O'Connell calls the games for him. But in the playoffs, making a run, we've got to be able to trust that Sam Darnold can do what he's doing and then some. He's got to raise his level, and I think that's where those odds difference comes from.
Yeah, no one's going to buy it until they see it in the postseason, let's be honest. But one thing you can trust about Sam, he's made a bleep ton of money for himself in the next contract he's going to get, which probably won't be with the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, let's talk about the NFC South now, because it looked earlier in the season, Kirk Cousins had that 515-yard passing performance, doing the swag surf after that one game, and then the Bucs lost both Evans and Godwin, and they stumbled. Well, the Bucs have suddenly found a way to win some games. And Kirk Cousins, quite frankly, looked really bad in that loss to the Chargers, throwing 4 interceptions. He could have thrown 8. And it's been sort of a decline over the last 3 or 4 weeks for Kirk. What are you expecting out of this division where it might be Tampa Bay once again rising out of nowhere to claim it yet again?
Yeah, Kirk's, last 3 games, 0 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Oof. It's just something that, even for him, we didn't see that in Minnesota at any point in his career. And so it's something that is alarming, especially because you have a guy like Bijan Robinson who can play so well, a running guy you can lean on. You've got the weapons in that offense. You just don't feel like that's the type of a game that he needs to play, which is forcing the ball. He made some egregious throws in the red zone to put his team behind. And I don't know if that's due to just lingering stuff from his injury, from his Achilles, or if he just hit a cliff and now the team or people around the team are hinting at maybe putting in Michael Penix. If you got to put in Michael Penix, I don't care where you drafted him, then the season is kind of done for. And so they've got to figure something out. But Baker and them are streaking, and they don't have their full complement, so they are not a complete team, I don't think. But Baker has this record recently, last year, of winning a playoff game. And so they absolutely believe in his kind of gunslinger mentality. He's a tough guy at quarterback. And then you have a playmaker at Mike Evans you can throw to. They're averaging over 24 points a game the last few games on offense, and their defense is giving up less than 24 points. And so that's a strategy to win a very tightly contested division.
Yeah, getting Mike Evans back in that offense was huge for the Bucs. Let's talk about another wide receiver that decided not to play when he was asked to play. Deontay Johnson for the Ravens, who they just brought in. We talked about the acquisition back in October. Decided not to play in the game against the Giants, so he's suspended for 1 game. As a player, what goes through your mind when you hear this, Marshall?
Well, the first thing that goes through my mind, not to be inappropriate, but when receivers leave Pittsburgh, something seems to happen to them. I'll put that out there.
That's true.
And then secondly, it reminds me of, I think it was 2018. I was in Buffalo, and we literally had, God rest him, Vontae Davis.
Retired at halftime. Retired at halftime.
Yeah. I remember him seeing the equipment guys packing up his boxes, and he is gone. And you hear all the stories. So that was a wild one. I don't know if this is on that level, but he seems to have something going on right now.
Well, and it's in a contract year for him. He just any chance he had to make any money. Like, who's going to give him any money now? Do you want to go in? No, I don't want to play. All right, check. We'll move on to somebody else. Barstool, thanks very much. We appreciate it. The Lions have gotten pretty tricky with some of their play calling this season because they did deep tonight in the playbook. You can bet we'll explain it next.
Welcome back to Pregame PowerUp, brought to you by Campbell's Chunky, soup that eats like a meal. We've gotten you your next-gen stats. Now it's time for next-gen cats. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, little obstacle. Okay, there's the Emmy. Is it Josh Jacobs? Oh, I thought it was a little fake. Josh Jacobs, all right.
My fantasy team approves.
Here's a look. Nobody cares. Here's a look at who bettors like to find the end zone tonight. Lots of juice on the board. Amon St. Brown has scored at least one touchdown in 8 of the last 10 games. David Montgomery has scored at least one in 11 of the Lions' last 13 regular season games as favorites. For more on how people are betting tonight's game, here is DKN social media correspondent Megan Townsley.
In a game filled with so much talent, how do we figure out who to back and who to bet on? That's why I went to the DraftKings Sportsbook betting groups to get some ideas because I needed them. So let's go to the Barstool betting group where Ben Mintz, aka Mincia Barstool, he built a 3-leg parlay starting with Green Bay moneyline, then Jameson Williams 80+ receiving yards, and Jaden Reed as an anytime touchdown scorer. I will say taking or fading Jameson Williams has been a decision I've had to make all season long. He's too boom or bust for me. It scares me, but give me a Jaden Reed touchdown anytime, any day of the week. Okay, let's take it to the Gold Boys betting group where Nick Larson, he's cooking up an interesting bet for himself today. He likes Jared Goff and Jordan Love each to record 40+ passing yards in each quarter. That's a game special tonight on DraftKings Sportsbook that I didn't even know about, and that is why I love these betting groups, to get some new, fresh ideas, and it's also so easy to find them. All you have to do is open up the DraftKings Sportsbook, then click on the social tab at the top, and then hit the betting groups button. I don't think y'all understand my excitement for the game. 2 talented teams, NFC North clash, and so many fun and talented players. So make sure you go check out these betting groups to get some ideas for yourself before the game kicks off tonight.
All right, you know how we do this. We have so much information in this 60-minute show, we can't get it all in, so we have to do something at the end of the show we like to call the data dump, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go. The Packers lead the NFL with 167 rushing yards and 9 explosive runs on wide receiver designated runs this season. The Lions are the only offense to average a higher explosive run rate, 45.5%, on wide receiver design runs among teams with at least 5 carries this season.
So they love those. You know what else they love? Trick plays. So far this season, three non-quarterbacks so far this season have attempted a pass for the Lions. Punter Jack Fox, wide receiver Amon St. Brown, and running back David Montgomery. And you could say 4 if you count last week, because Penei Sewell wanted to. It looked like he was going to throw, but he took a sack instead. Any non-quarterback to attempt a pass for Detroit is actually a market you can bet on at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Plus 250 for the Lions to pull off some trickery.
They will at some point. That's going to happen tonight, I guarantee it. Over the last 3 seasons, the Lions are now 36-12-1 against the first half spread. That's the best mark of any team in the NFL. Translated, they get on you early. When that game is against an NFC North opponent, the Lions are 12-2-1 in first half against the spread and have won the first half in 6 straight games against NFC opponents. Tonight, Detroit is 2.5 on the first half spread and minus 155 on the money line.
And we leave you some trends we missed. Jordan Love and Goff have faced 3 times before this. All 3 times, the road team got the win and the cover. Goff, 15-6 ATS against the NFC North. That's the second best of any quarterback over the last 20 years. Aaron Rodgers is the only one ahead of him. And Detroit has won and covered 4 straight after Turkey Day.
You always hear coaches preach, we just need to get one and we get rolling, right? Nobody embodies that more than the Detroit Lions. November 22, week 9. The Lions came into a game against Green Bay. They were 1-6. Under Dan Campbell, they were 4-19-1. They won that game 15-6. Since that game, no one in the NFL has a better record than the Detroit Lions. Including that game, they are 31-8, tied with, you got it, the Kansas City Chiefs for the best record in the NFL over that time frame. So when you ever hear a coach say, we just need to get one, Dan Campbell's Lions are living proof. That game turned around his coaching career, and we'll see what happens tonight in what is going to be a great Thursday night game. For Emerson Lazia, Marshall Newhouse, and Claudia Bellafotto, I'm Trey Wingo. Thanks for watching the Pregame PowerUp, and have a hell of a good time watching what should be a hell of a good game.